Hello everyone, Kier here, and welcome to the InfiNOT podcast. I'm focused on the casual nature of the game, and each week I discuss the new patch, the new card, and my feelings on the game. But before we hop into it, guys, I have something super exciting to announce. I am now an official part of the Snap Judgments podcasting network. And I'll get to what that means in a moment, but before I begin the pod, you should know about some of the other amazing podcasts as a part of this network. It includes the OG Snap Judgments featuring Glazer and Roy, which is just incredible. I've been following that podcast for several years now, and I'm a huge fan of both of those guys, so this is truly a dream come true. Some other podcasts include Snap Decisions featuring Joe, who I've guested on his podcast a number of times. He's the one that's inspired me to keep the show going, and I will always be grateful for that. And Snap on This, which features Lauren Whatevs, Ben Roller, and Ree. Guys, that podcast is super fun. They do some very cool things on that show, like Secret Homework, so you should definitely check that out. But yeah, I'm super grateful that I was given the opportunity to be a part of this. I'm super excited to continue doing what I'm doing, just with the extra support of some amazing people in the community. So please, if you listen to this podcast, check it out. If you join the Snap Judgments League Discord, there's also a section for my podcast there. So if you want to chat with me in Discord, I'll be posting the episode links there. And if you have questions or comments or things like that, you can post them there, and I'll be happy to answer. So yeah, really cool. I'm super stoked. And from now on, you'll hear me giving a little bit of a spiel at the beginning of every episode, but I couldn't be more happy about it. This is so cool. All right, now let's hop into the new stuff that's happening this week. Okay, so this week we have a new card in Starbrand, and a new OTA balance update, which kinda killed Hela. Now, I say kinda because I still think that this deck is playable and people are going to continue to abuse it. But the fact that it survived after this tells you just how strong it is. Okay, let's start with Starbrand. Starbrand is a 3/10 that says, ongoing, your opponent has +3 power at each other location. And what that means is if you put him in the middle location, the left and right locations are going to get that +3 power, right? So it's easy to think of this as like, okay, well, if he's giving 3 power, that's 6 power because it's at 2 locations. So he's kind of like a 3/4. I would say the difference here is you only have to win 2 out of 3 locations in Marvel Snap. I would equate him more to a 3/7. Because yeah, you are giving power to 2 other locations, but if you're choosing to win 2, that means that you're really only worried about the +3 on one of those other ones, right? So that already makes him decent as a 3/7 that also has that 10 power in the lane that he's in, right? What I think makes this card especially good is its synergies with things like Sauron and Zero, which I've seen a ton of decks with that coming back. And honestly, I don't mind, because that deck is strong, but it's not unbeatable, right? If you have tech to take it down, like Shang-Chi or even stuff like Valkyrie, right? Like that totally beats the deck. So I'm really okay with that deck coming back. The other decks I'm not too sure about. I'm seeing Scar decks use this card. I'm seeing it in Sarah Tech decks, and I'm also seeing it with Scar in that, Surtur sort of build, right? Is the card broken? No. Thankfully, no. It turns out if you can't mitigate the downside, sometimes it's giving your opponent too much leeway. But I do think that the card has a really solid place, and I think that's everything I have to say about it. It's basically a 3/10 with a downside. It would be like talking about Typhoid Mary when she came out, right? So yeah, that's all I have to say about Starbrand. I give it like a solid 3.5 out of 5. Like, I think it has its places. It's a fine card. It's a little bit boring, right? It's just big. It's keyword big. But it's all right. I think it's going to find some more places. And hopefully we find out that 3/10 isn't insanely broken. I guess we have some comparable things in the game, like Sage, which requires to be played at the end of the game, but still. Like, I think we have comparable cards that make it a little less scary, but still. Something to keep an eye on. I hope this isn't, like, the new normal. Okay, next up is the OTA balance updates, and we have some spicy changes in here. I'm going to be interested to see what happens next. Let's start with the Hela package that got nerfed. So Hela went from a 6-9 to a 6-6. Swordmaster went from a 3-7 to a 3-6. Hellcow went from a 4-7 to a 4-6. And Black Cat went from a 4-10 to a 2-6. So there's a lot to cover in this. First of all, I spoke about it on the Snap Judgments podcast. Having like almost an entire card's worth of power missing from this archetype is notable, right? Like if you take all the numbers that were adjusted, that's about 9 power that this deck used to have that it no longer has using these cards, which does impact the game, right? There's a chance you might lose by 9 points. That is totally possible. What I would say though is like, I don't know if this is really going to change like the way that this deck functions. It's either you win by a landslide or you don't. I don't know if I really like that kind of design, but it is a card game. Maybe this is something that they want to keep around. And Lord knows, Hela has been changed so many times. It's hard to feel invigorated when a new change comes around. It gets tiring. Still, I'm a good cards deck enjoyer, so I play a lot of mid-range cards, and Hela is just really unfun to play against. If I see that they have everything lined up, I pretty much always leave on 5, which doesn't feel like a good gameplay loop. So I'm happy with these changes. I think it's going to impact things. Black Cat seems like the most interesting one to me, because first of all, this does open the 4-cost slot for a discard, which is interesting. And now that she's at 2-6, could you make the argument that if you're playing a low curve deck, she just might fit in there? Like, maybe not Agent Venom or Bounce, but maybe like the Little Soldiers deck that Cozy made, where it's just like you play US Agent and Elaine, you play Goose, and then you also have Black Cat in there, because she's only unplayable on one turn of the game, and that's turn 1. Every other turn, as soon as you draw her, as long as you play her, that's a 2-6. That's kind of crazy, right? I don't know. I'd be kind of fascinated to see if maybe she slots into more places. And again, it's a free discard in Hela, so you're probably still going to put her in there, but really fascinating to me. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. Overall, I like the changes. I think this is warranted, especially with how pervasive Hela has been, and I hope I see a little less of her. I've been seeing a lot of negative too, which is just so annoying, man. I even stayed in a game once because I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to win this. I managed to clog one of their lanes because I have Winds of Watum, right? So it was filled with a couple of things in Wong, and it was like 13 power. So I knew that I could beat that. And then on turn 6, I Eliathed their Super Scroll and Mystique. So I was like, okay, I got this in the bag. And then, of course I don't. They plop down a Gore and a Taskmaster and a Sage, and I lose anyway. And I'm like, well, to heck with that. I guess I have to leave every game now. I know what you're probably thinking in your mind. Yes, I should have left anyway. But like, I don't know. I just wanted to prove myself. Like maybe if I play my cards right, I can pull out a victory. But no, that deck is insanely strong. If they get negative, they didn't even get Jane. I think they just got good draws. So yeah, man, I'm a little sick of these big decks. I'm definitely enjoying the game the most when it's mid range. That being said, let's talk about a card that also fits into the mid-range package, and that's Doom 2099. Now, we got a change that happened earlier that reduced the power of the bots, up the power of Doom himself, but this is taking it even further. The Doom bots are going from a 4-1 to a 4-0. So the only power that they're getting is from each other. Does this significantly impact the way that you play Doom 2099? No, it's not changing the play pattern, but it is changing directly the power of the deck. You're losing what is functionally 3 power when you add it up. So is that enough to stop people from playing this card? My theory is that yes, in most decks, you're probably not going to slap this in as a catch-all. The problem with Doom 2099 is that it's just free cards. it's just free bodies on the board. And since you're only playing one card at a time, you're probably playing big stuff, right? So it was always just extra power for free. I think this is a more healthy design, and it leads more into like what Galacta or Gwenpool does, right? Like those are functionally 4/12s at their best, and they're distributing power from themselves, right? That should be what Doom is. And when you add up the points, if you were to play Doom 29 on 4, I think you would have like 15 power on the board, right? Because each Doom bot is going to go up to, is it 3 or 4? Something like that. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. We're going to say the ballpark of 15 power, right? I think that's fine. I think that 15 power for the somewhat lenient restriction of playing one card per turn makes sense to me. And I was saying on the Snap Judgments pod, I think you could probably still play this in Spectrum and still have a really good time, because again, it's just free cards. You are just getting free bodies on the board for playing one card a turn. So I think that it's still going to be good. I would suspect, though, that this is going to be pretty restricted in other decks. So yeah. Speaking of the ongoing archetype, this is a bit of a crazy change. So Captain America's shield from Sam Wilson is being changed from a 1/1 to a 0/1. And the reason this matters is because it takes away the synergy with cards like Marvel Boy and Cole Obsidian, which were some of its most powerful synergies, right? In almost every Sam deck, you would throw in Cole Obsidian because it's guaranteed that you're able to play him out. Before, his restriction used to be restrictive. If you didn't get a 1-drop to be played before you could play him down, he was a dead card. It was sort of like a Crossbones effect. So this card coming out completely removed that restriction and made Cole Obsidian ridiculous. I think this is more fair, right? It sucks because I have a deck that totally depends on that synergy, but I'm okay getting rid of it, acknowledging that it's not something that they intended. They even mentioned that in the notes, that this is not something that they wanted the card to be, so yeah. I think this card is going to be a little worse, but you're still seeing him in a ton of decks, so I don't think that his strength is going to go down at all. Next up is Loki, and Loki's going to a 1/2. And wow, that is insane to me. People were complaining about turn 1 Loki and Arishem because it felt unfair. Now you can do that again, and I don't know, do you just put this in like every deck? I made a good cards list with Loki, and I just made like an Arishem whatever, or not an Arishem, an Agamotto whatever deck, and I just threw good cards in there. And like, if you get Loki on turn 1, you can sometimes just win the game. Just because you like, if you draw your opponent's big cards and play them out before they do, you win, right? Like, I don't know about this. Maybe the win rate of this is going to be more even than I think. But as a backup plan, it's really good. I'm gonna be interested to see if maybe we get sick of Loki in the next couple of weeks. Right now, I'm having fun with it. Like, I'm not mad at it right now, but it's only because I think I've had some time away from that. I remember back in the Loki season, that was probably the most miserable period of my Marvel Snap playing. I hated playing against Loki. So I'll have to just wait and see. Maybe this shakes out to be more fair than I'm thinking. Thanos is also getting a buff. Kind of 2 buffs, right? So Thanos himself is going to a 6/12, and the Space Stone is going to a 1/2. I think it's fair to say at this point that we're not using the base cards as a basis for balance anymore, right? It used to be the case where, like, if something was stronger than the Hulk, you would need, like, some heavy downside. But I think the game philosophy has changed, right? Like, base cards are supposed to be bad. I think we've decided. Like, playing them for their power is going to never be worth it ever. And so because of that, him going to a 6/12 makes sense. Right now, he's appealing to play. He can win a lane by himself. 12 power is notable. And the Thanos deck getting an extra point of power from the Space Stone is also notable, right? Now the Space Stone feels better to play. Will this change the construction of the decks? Probably not, but it does, again, make the deck incrementally better. I think they mentioned in the patch notes here that Thanos has been in a slump for a while. They wanted to improve him, but not make him the metagame destroyer that he sometimes becomes. So adding 2 extra power and extra power on Space Stone, like, they're incremental changes, but I mean, if you have Thanos in your hand, that feels good, right? Sometimes you can just play him down, and sometimes he's a 5/12, right? Because of the Time Stone. And that's just a Gomorrah. Like, that feels good. So I like this change. Part of me wonders if this was inspired by how good Agamotto feels to play at a 5/13. Maybe they're thinking to themselves, like, yeah, why is Thanos such low power? And it's really hard to get his stones all together for that boost in power for Thanos, right? So, like, I think it's fair. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'll be interested to see it. Maybe I can play my Mojo Dazzler deck with Thanos again. That might be fun. Okay, next up is Wolverine going to a 2/3. And this is, yeah, it's good. It's fine. I think Destroy is always one of those decks that I'm not too afraid of becoming meta, because, like, they're not going to be able to protect their cards almost always, right? They're not going to put Cosmo or Armor in their deck because that goes counter to what their deck does. So I can always hope to win with Shang-Chi or another analogous card. So, like, I'm fine with this getting stronger, and this also helps lower collection level players, right? It gives more of an incentive to play this. So yeah, I think this is fair. Last change here is Bruce Banner going from 2/1 end of turn, if you've unspent energy, 25% chance to Hulk out, to now 33% chance to Hulk out. I'm a little nervous about this. I don't want this card to ever be, like, so good that you can play it outside of the high evo archetype. Like, I would hope that this is still just going to be a card that goes in there and helps to improve that deck. I hope that's what they're trying to do here. Because, I mean, 33% chance, that's a number better than 25% chance. It's going from a 1 in 4 to a 1 in 3. Yeah, I mean, this will see improvement. Like, statistically, it has to. I'll be interested to see if maybe that brings more love to that archetype and we can have some more Hulks and She-Hulks in the game. I think that would be fine. Again, just a little nervous. If this ends up being a little bit too much percent, I guess they have the ability to tune it to whatever they want. 33 and 25 are, like, nice numbers, but they could fine-tune it if it really got to a point that they didn't like. So, yeah. Not a bad change by any means. I think just having a 2/12 in the game is scary, and that's what I worry about. Part of that is like, okay, well, you're skipping energy, so is it really a 2/12? But you get my point, right? Anyway, those are all of the OTA adjustments. I think for the most part, I'm happy with it. This is taking care of one of the most pervasive archetypes in the game right now, which is Hela and the Doom 2099. Loki, I'm a little nervous about. I'm excited. I'm having fun, but I don't know if that's, like, because the card is too good. I hope it's not too good. I hope it's just, like, a fun option that you can splash into your deck. And I like the Thanos change. The number buffs for the rest of the cards are good. So yeah, I think that's everything that I have to talk about. Again, check out those other podcasts. They are amazing. Check out the Discord where you can talk to me. And if there's one thing that you can remember, it's that I'm InfiNOT. Thanks for listening.